Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, September 4th, 2018 City Council meeting. If you could please stand for the pledge.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item, at our last council meeting, we had a closed session. Oh, yes, thank you.
Okay. Mayor Follendorf,
Here.
Vice Mayor Herman,
Here.
Councilmember Matilde,
Here.
Councilmember Oliveira,
Present.
and Councilmember Behill is absent.
Okay.
We have a quorum.
Last city council meeting, we had two items on closed session. Item A, public employee performance evaluation, direction was given to staff. And item B, conference with labor negotiator, direction was given to staff. Item 3, approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
Is there any public comment? Nope. Okay, there's a motion on the table. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 401. Item number 4, public comment. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on any matter not on the agenda. State law prohibits the city council from acting upon matters not listed on the agenda. Is there any public comment?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm Debbie Ponte, and I serve as the volunteer chair for the Mark Twain Wild West Committee. And I'm here to report on behalf of the committee that the Wild West goes on Saturday, October 20th in downtown Angels Camp from the hours of 10 to 5. There was some concerns earlier this summer in regards to funding, if we were going to be able to match our funding with our activities and such. And the committee has come together and we have found ways to kind of reduce some of our expenses as well as go out and seek additional donations. So we're happy to say that the Wild West is on. We'll see you on the 20th. We encourage you to come. Come on down, and if you want to volunteer, we have all sorts of volunteer activities. So let Melissa know, and we'll be in touch and get you involved in the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. I believe Susan needed to read something into public
Yes.
comment.
I've received a letter dated August 29th, 2018, and it's from Ann Forrest, Director, Angels Camp Business Association. She writes, "This Labor Day weekend, over 100 new American flags will fly along Main Street in Angels Camp from Angels Creek in the south to the city line on the north. Flying the flags along Main Street on major holidays started in 2012 to mark the city's 100th anniversary of its incorporation. This year, 2018, is the 170th anniversary of the city's founding by Henry Angel when he set up his camp along a stream in 1848. It takes a lot of people to organize a regular observance like this, and we would like to thank and acknowledge them. The Angels Camp Veterans Memorial District provided all the funding in 2012 and provided over half of the funding again in 2018. This year, Signal Service and its CEO, Mark Wilson, made a generous contribution toward the large flags that fly outside of the downtown area, and Amy and Roy Bradley of the Chicken Barn purchased the smaller flags that line the historic downtown. The employees of the city's Public Works Department have handled the logistics since 2012, flying the flags at least 8 times a year and then storing them. Members of the Board of Directors of the Angels Camp Business Association and their families wash and repair the flags annually to keep them looking fresh. As you drive along Main Street Angels Camp this Labor Day week and appreciate the flags, remember the community effort that it takes to get them there. This is just one example of the community spirit that is alive and well in Angels Camp. Ann Forrest, Director, Angels Camp Business Association."
Thank you, Susan. Any other public comment? No? Okay. Item number 5, consent agenda. The following consent agenda items are expected to be routine. They will be acted upon the council at one time without discussion. Any council member, staff member, or interested person may request that any consent item be removed for discussion. We have item A through E on our consent agenda. Is there any public comment? Council,
I'd like to pull E for a little discussion, please.
okay.
I'd like to pull B for discussion.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve A, C, and D?
Sorry, I apologize. I'd like to just ask a question on C also.
Okay. Okay. Is there a motion to approve A and D?
So moved?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So first item, B.
Approval of contract between the City of Angels Bret Harte Union High School District to provide a police officer, one to serve as a school resource officer on campus at the cost to the city not to exceed $26,000 plus vehicle and equipment. I just want to make sure that we're clarifying that the vehicle and the equipment is what we currently have somewhere? Or are we purchasing?
I asked the chief openly last meeting if he had enough vehicles to cover it, and his answer was yes.
Okay. I couldn't remember which way that had gone. And then also, were we doing this on a permanent basis for this office, for this officer? Or were we
I'm glad that you asked. So I was going to pull this item myself.
Because
The
of
Bret
the
Harte High
funding.
School, one of the comments that they've had is that we add the amount that they're contributing, the $85,000 that they will contribute. The city has agreed to provide a not-to-exceed amount of $26,000 plus the equipment and vehicle, and it is for this year. We're hopeful that it will be a beneficial service for Bret Harte High School and that they will want to continue with the program. But really, that this is at their request. We were able to accommodate this partnership, and as long as their funding remains available to contribute, then the program will go on. I have spoken with Chief Fordall in terms of making sure that it is a sustainable position for both the city and the high school, and he is aware of some school resource officer funding opportunities and potentially a partnership with the county where we might be able to partner with them for some additional funding to sustain it multiple years. But for now, our goal is to get through this year and reevaluate.
Okay, so upon that worst-case scenario, all the funding goes away from the school district. We can't find any funds out there anywhere from the county, et cetera. What responsibility financially are we looking at as a city? And it's not the initial pay. We're always you have to look at the large picture of the benefits and everything down the road, as we all hopefully have learned very clearly.
Correct. So Chief has notified the individual interested in the position that it's contingent upon funding.
Okay.
And so that they're aware that the position may not be available. We're looking at potentially an internal opportunity for an existing city employee to consider this position. And then we are also looking at contracting opportunities with the sheriff's office during this period of being short-staffed. So at this point, until we come back to you in October with our staffing plan to get through the months of October and December with our chief recruitment, with this internal shift, and now being down 2 officers who are going through the academy, we will bring hopefully to a plan that first meeting in October. But at this point, I'm not recommending we fly a position until we're able to coordinate with the sheriff's department if they're able to support us with some officers during this period of short staff.
Okay.
If we do need to recruit for a position and hire an officer, at that point, should this funding not be available, then the MOU would come into effect and senior officers would have bumping rights. And we would need to follow the terms of that agreement should we not be able to sustain the level of staffing. But it's been made clear to officers considering the position, it's a limited term at this moment.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Public comment? Okay. And move to item C. Did you want to talk?
Oh, I just was wondering, I'm reading this, and do they have a location for this electric vehicle charging station?
Not specified yet. The only thing that we have as a general criteria is it has to be towards the back of the lot, so not visible from the street.
Okay.
Your CVB, is you're saying?
Yeah, the visitor center.
Visitor Center.
So are those stations then only for electric vehicles, and nobody can park in that area if they're not an electric car?
We're going to have to figure that out.
Just because.
Right now, they're designated as a charging station.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, we don't want to take all the parking away from that site. So we have a little bit of pre-thinking we can do, but until the state actually gives us the expenditure authorization, we're not supposed to do anything because we won't be reimbursed. So we're thinking a little bit, just mulling it over right now, but as it is.
And it says an electric vehicle charging station, is that like a space or?
Yes.
Just one?
Just one right now, but we
Okay.
got to see if we can get maybe two. We get two, then maybe it could be a shared thing.
Okay,
So it's, we're going to have to figure it out once we get down to final design.
okay. I just don't want to have these open spaces and them not being accessed, and we all know how parking is downtown.
Yeah.
Fun, fun, fun.
Any public comment? No? Any other council comment? No? Okay. Item E.
I was wondering if I could get from Mike or staff or Debbie or somebody, just kind of a summary of those components that are in that DAC funding. I know we budgeted 20 initially, we added another 5 for the EDD support, that made 25, and then this was,
There was an additional 25.
yeah,
Thank you, Mike.
There was an additional 25,000 coming out of, help me.
So, actually, Emily, did you bring the Post-it note? So we had identified, I believe, $20,000 for DAC. We
yeah,
had 25,000 for DAC. We had 20,000 going to the consultant contract for the measure. And then it was recommended by Councilman Behill that he wanted to increase the DAC contribution by an additional $5,000 to fully fund a full-time position, which according to the DAC budget request, I believe was $55,000. So there you see our general fund proposed budget shortfall was 14. Council directed to increase TOT to the general fund by 30. AB 109 resulted in a loss of $20,000. Mark Twain Wild West, when we defunded that as an event, it added 65. When we had proposed budget cuts to the museum, it added 24. We gave DAC an additional 5, and then the 20 from the contract was revenue neutral. So that's how we got to funding DAC $55,000.
you went too fast for me. I'm
Is the
sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Was
I
the
got 20 initially, right?
the consultant?
I believe the proposed budget was 25.
25.
The consultant contract that we had proposed in the draft was 20. And then I believe it was the recommendation of Councilman Behill to make it 55,000, which was DAC's proposal for a full-time position. And to shift the education and outreach component of the measure under the contract, which was 20, to DAC instead of a consultant. So that's what brought the total to $55,000.
So it was a shift to 55 without a line item that equaled that. It just
That's right.
said, bring it up to 55.
Right.
Okay,
Yes.
got it. I was having trouble with the math there. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Any other?
So that's where that was born, is that little.
I was wondering one thing, Melissa, you had said something about the museum with the 24. Was
Yes.
that part of that, too? We're getting that 25, initial 25 was from
So
that, balancing that out?
Well, all of that was the balancing effort that we wanted to do to try to get the general fund shortfall as close to zero. So when you look at the additions and the minuses, it's all either adding or subtracting to your balance. So the cuts to the museum, the 24, were definitely part of
Okay.
that overall discussion.
All right. Wondered about that.
Very good, thank you.
Any other council question, comment? No? Any public comment? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve B, C, and E?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Regular agenda. Item A, appointment of 2 council members to serve on the interview committee for chief of police. And I will turn that over to Melissa.
I'll take it.
Or Susan, sorry,
Yeah,
excuse me.
that's okay. Mayor and city council members, as you know, the chief of police tendered his resignation in July in anticipation of his retirement. He'll be leaving the city in early October. So we've been recruiting for a new police chief. The filing deadline for applying for the position closed on August 31st, and the city is now ready to proceed with the selection process. Staff recommends the formation of an interview committee consisting of 2 council members, the city administrator, the director of administrative services, and an outside law enforcement officer in a lateral position. We're looking to Sonora, to their police chief, I think,
Okay.
to interview the candidates, and the chief has agreed to serve in an advisory capacity to us.
Okay, so he will not participate, just to be clear. He
Pardon
will
me?
not participate other than the advisory, just to be clear. Okay.
Yes.
We have had a request that the council consider also including a member of our city fire department to participate on that committee as well,
Okay.
because of the important role that police and fire play in coordinating emergency responses for the city. So as the city administrator, I support that request to include them as well.
Okay. How does the rest of the council feel?
I support that.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. What's the count up to?
Yeah, I was
for-
wondering, how many applicants?
5.
5,
That's
okay.
interesting.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
It happened last at the
And
end.
the committee would bring back some number between 2 and 5 for full council committee consideration?
I think that they'll bring back a recommendation. The committee would bring back a recommendation to you for
For
a
one?
single.
Okay,
Oh,
great.
Okay. Before I bring it back to council for the discussion, is there any public comment on this item? No? Okay, we'll bring it back to council discussion.
Well, I'm interested in participating in that, for what it's worth.
Okay. And then, okay,
Well-
well, then,
I'll
you want-
participate. I just want to make sure my schedule's going to be okay.
It's going to be a pretty tight schedule.
Is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
it's gonna be.
We have
pretty-
heard from Sonora PD, I believe they're available on the 19th and 20th.
Okay, I
So
know.
we would anticipate it being probably one day.
Yeah, I already know I'm not going to be here.
Okay. So with that,
I'm willing to do that, but,
We can't hear you.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm willing to, unless anyone else wanted to on the council, I'm willing.
okay. Okay, with that, I know that it's been discussions of having myself serve on it as well. Not sure if at this point the recommendation would be to have myself and Joe be on the committee unless otherwise
That's fine.
do,
No, that's what I was saying, unless you really wanted to, then I think it's better for you to do it with Joe than me.
okay.
Okay?
With that being said, do we need a vote for that or is it a consensus?
A consensus is fine.
Is it consensus? Okay.
So it's clear that it's Joe Olivera and Mayor Fallendorf.
Correct. And then add the representative from the fire department.
Okay.
So that would bring that total number to the committee of,
2,000? It's a big committee.
I know. Well, this is an important decision. I mean, we have to weigh. We have to weigh a lot.
Six.
All right, that's good.
Okay.
And it'll be a one-day deal with hopefully all 5 coming in the same day, right?
That's right. That'll be our goal.
Great.
Okay. Okay. Item B, consideration of the River Parkway grant application for the Angels Creek Trail. And I will turn it over to Amy.
Madam Mayor, council members, this opportunity arose. There's approximately $7 million as one of the Proposition 68 funds available to local areas. This particular funding source, with only $7 million, is highly competitive. However, the grant is tailored to trails that run along creeks in areas with a population that is considered disadvantaged. We meet both of those criteria under this particular grant funding source. It also calls for 20% match. We happen to have about $600,000 left in what was initially $750,000 towards the planning and engineering and a little bit of the construction for the trail. So we have been coordinating with Drake Haglund to see if it was possible by the 27th of this month to submit what would be a conceptual plan, which is very helpful because you do not have to spend hours and weeks and months prepping the application. You simply put in a conceptual plan and then they invite you or do not invite you to submit a full application. So it would take less than 10 hours of my time. I have applied for these before. We did successfully acquire one for the city of Oakdale to do a trail down to the Stanislaus River. It wasn't in the amount of $750,000. They later amended that and gave us $300,000 more dollars, which we went ahead and accepted. And so we are currently completing construction of that particular trail. There is no guarantee for this. As I said, it's highly, highly competitive. However, I think for the section that we're looking at, which would be from basically the Angels Hotel up to Tryon Park, I think we have something that nobody else has, and that is a tie-in to the celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County, and a trail that starts right by the Angels Hotel, where that story was first heard. And this would be an interpretive trail, and surprise, surprise, we would emphasize interpreting the types of frogs that people have contemplated have been the celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County, as well as some of the history of the creek, how Utica water ties into it because they are also upstream and whatnot. So that said, there is one slight glitch in that the trail as currently designed, you can't see it here quite as well, is somewhat modern looking, and this particular grant source prefers that they be a little bit more rustic. In other words, these would go a little bit more towards an earth tone, and if there would be any divider, it would be something more along the lines of a split rail fence as opposed to something more ornate. The reason that Drake Haglund thought this would be a good thing to go after is this pedestrian bridge, and again, that's not the final design, is something that's going to be a big ticket item. Once that's out of the way, the rest of the trail will be much less expensive to build. So we basically want to sort of knock that off our list. If we can get this grant to get this trail, this portion of the trail over the creek, which, as you know, helps us get people from the hotel over to the trail without having to go through this little pinch point, which is part of the bridge area, and it's only a little sidewalk area. And so that's basically what we're trying for. And we're asking for your input and, if possible, your authorization to move forward and go ahead and submit that. Any questions that you might
Amy,
have?
I have a question.
Yes.
Of the how does the math work? Is it 750 of which we have to come up with 20% of that? Or is it 750 plus 20% for 900 and something? How does that work?
It's 750 plus 20%. So it would be,
Ends up around 900,000.
it ends up around 900. We already have the money
To
for the
cover
20%. We have simply asked, they did not anticipate spending that until next year, and it would coincide with when we would be signing a grant agreement. So if we timed it that way, we would start spending that 20% at the same time we sign a grant agreement, and we'd be able to use money we already have as our 20% match.
Okay.
Any other council comment, questions?
I just, think it's a wonderful idea. Something that we really have needed, so I totally support it.
And then it would free up money for the remainder of the trail. If we get additional money for this section, we can spend some of the additional money on future sections.
In regards to the bridge,
Yes.
who would be building that?
A consultant, contractor, who would be hired with these monies.
Okay.
To
And
do it.
it's, I'm looking at this, I know it's a concept, but we're wanting it for two-way traffic? Wide
Yes, yes, and so that we don't have people walking right along this traveled way
enough? Right.
where it's very, very close.
Oh, yeah, I've
You know,
walked it.
so that, yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
okay, okay. Interesting.
And again, the design we submit will likely be a little more rustic than that.
Any public comment at this time?
So Debbie Ponte, Executive Director at Destination Angels Camp. So our board, excuse me, our board endorses this particular grant and would do what we could to help support it, including writing a letter in support. This is part of the Angels Creek Trail Project, which has been on the books for a few years. It's one of the most talked about projects in downtown in helping tourists to take a walk along the scenic trail of Angels Creek in a safe environment. We already have people who walk now, but this would make it much safer as well as encouraging. And then providing some additional turnaround and parking down at Tryon Park. And we're hopeful to get a bathroom down there. So hopefully that can be part of this as well. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Nope. Okay, I will bring it back to council for a vote. The motion to,
I move to support contract planner to proceed with in pursuit of the application.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Amy. Item C, response to council council questions from the fourth quarter financial plan. Mike and Emily.
Madam Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, council members, distinguished guests. Where was I? Okay. You have the documents in front of you when we'll get moving on it, and we'll get the presentation in just a moment. These are questions that were raised at the last meeting when we presented the budget versus actual for 2017-18. We've listed the questions and the answers underneath it. Capital combined outlay and capital projects. We need to talk to Larry Baines about that to make sure that we're not violating some edict of the accounting gods by making that combination. We pretty much come to the conclusion, however, that we're dealing with capital outlay and capital projects, where capital outlay is a verb and capital projects is a noun. You feed capital outlay into capital budgets. They're all capital expenditures. Sometimes they go into a project, sometimes they don't. So we think we're okay with just calling them all capital expenditures, but we want to make sure with Larry that we're not going to screw up his presentation, financial statement presentation by doing that. What is the status of the TOT audit? We have addressed that with the people who were involved in the TOT audit. We are going to get together with the TOT audit people over the phone and find out what's going on with the audit itself. We actually have pieces of that audit in our possession, and we are developing a report that we can get back to you at the next meeting. Police dispatch was shown as under budget, and the question was, do we have it all in the, do we have all the expenditures in the books? And the answer is no, we don't. We are going to have to accrue, and already have, $35,589 and change. That's not as disastrous as it seems when we get down to item, where are you? One of the items down here below, which will cover that. But that will put it over budget, $21,800.
Well, is it
No, it's 2,000.
2180 or 21?
$2,180.
Thank you. Is that
Yeah.
1718 adjustment, or is that an 1819 budget issue?
That's a 1718 adjustment. There were some questions about contract services being over budget in the planning department. All of these words basically says that Dave Hanham left halfway through the year. Amy came in to sub for Dave Hanham. His salary was budgeted through the end of the year. He only actually had budget paid through half of the year. Amy's over budget was offset by that, being under budget. Roads, what are other revenue? There is a schedule attached here too. The first one you'll see is capital expenditures, and we'll come back to that. Other revenue from roads, the majority of it is the road relinquishment funds. A few other objects.
Is there a page number here that we're looking at?
I'm sorry, no, we didn't get page numbers on here. It is the,
It's the first
Look
page
like
up.
that?
it is the first page of other revenue, yes. At the bottom.
Yeah, okay.
Isn't it this, roads?
The expenditure, we're talking revenue or expenditure?
Then the general question came up is what is other revenue, and that's the remainder of the
And
schedule.
it came up because this detail wasn't available in the previous report? so
That's
It wasn't
correct.
displayed?
Right.
It just had the whole number?
Right.
Okay.
And you're more than welcome to look that over, and if you have any questions now or later on, just get a hold of Emily or myself, and we'll be happy to answer the questions. LLD, the explanation, the question was, how could landscape fees be over budget if we have a contract? In fact, it was not over budget. What occurred was that when we put together the presentation, we got that on the wrong line. The actual over budget situation related to water. We were over budget on water, and we're looking into that to see why that occurred. The landscaping fees were under $100 over budget. Next item is the Greenhorn Creek admin fees. We made an adjustment. The admin fees had been recorded in the wrong account, so we just moved them to the proper account. Just an accounting error. There was a debt service payment shown in the Greenhorn Creek Assessment District other than the actual debt service that is associated with the Greenhorn Creek Assessment District. That's where people pay in from the residents in Greenhorn Creek, and we pay, we're actually a go-between, and we actually pay the bonds off to the bond holder, the bank that holds the bonds. There was another debt service payment shown there that wasn't actually, it was under budget, and it was the result of Greenhorn Creek Assessment District Fund borrowing money from the water fund. And that was the payback to the water fund from the assessment district.
Wait a minute.
So was that from the legal, from the court process a couple years ago with the LLD?
Yes,
Yes, okay. And they finally paid it.
that's correct. Yeah, that was paid off. Number 12 is our offset to our $35,000 worth of fees that need to be recorded. This is USDA. The question was, what was USDA? The Forest Service is an agency within USDA. This is Forest Service money for the strike team. There are times when we don't get paid from Cal Fire, we get paid from the U.S. Forest Service. That was $48,000. 48,615, something like that. So the $48,000 offsets the $35,000 in dispatch fees that we had to record.
Okay.
And technically, that puts us in a position where we are not $14,000 over break even, we're $27,000 over break even.
Okay.
We, on the water wastewater study, we're moving along with that. We have a phone meeting with the consultant who is doing the water wastewater fee study on September 11th, and we will report back to you on that on that phone conversation at the meeting that follows that phone conversation.
I'd like to make a couple comments about that.
Yes.
My tenure here is a little over a year, and this rate study's been in the works for that time, and I've heard Scott and others mention that it goes back way beyond that. The documents that we were provided along the way show us behind this particular schedule. I'd like to make a special request that, A, you guys do everything you can to accelerate this, and B, if you could have the consultant come into the meeting on the 18th and give us an overview of what a realistic schedule looks like to them and what the components are that we need to provide. And then finally, the rate fee study that was provided by Union Pacific Utility District goes all the way back to 2016. So then there's a question I have for the consultant, is that still valid? And does that have to be redone? And is that going to have to be, part of the things that need to be provided? So would really like to see that consultant present to give us an overview of what it's going to be required and what the timeline realistically can be. I bring it all up because we got an obligation with the JPA, UWP, and whatnot, and there's a shortfall there, and it's a domino thing going on that needs to be addressed, and key to the whole thing is the rate study in Angels, among other things. Can do?
Can do.
I'm sorry, I missed the report that you mentioned dating back to 2000.
16.
Instrumental in the study is a fee study that was provided by Union Public Utility District, and it's dated 2016, so that's 2 years ago. So I'm just wondering and hoping the consultant can provide some input You know, is that among the things that needs to be updated? What are the other components that they'd be looking to us for, and, you know, to help us accelerate the whole thing?
Okay.
Thanks.
There was a question about the status of all of the capital expenditures. Were they complete? Were they rebudgeted? Were they abandoned, and so on? If you look at the capital expenditure schedule on the very right-hand side, it has information on the status of each one of these projects. And after you have time to look at that, do you have any questions? Please let me know, and we'll get you some answers. Let's move on to number 16. 15 is a little more involved than number 16. 16 had to do with the hardware, software, leasing prospects. We have had extensive conversation with Computer Fireman, and they are looking into the prospects of taking any one of these alternatives that we discussed at the last meeting, and we will report back to you on that we are moving forward on that line, and we're going to get it done.
Well, you know, just a couple of comments on that. Kind of a two-pronged approach to that. One is direct communication with Dell Corporation, who provides leases to governments. And number two, some direct communication with the state to see if there's something that could leverage, you know, in the leasing mode. My take on the leasing thing is just because if you're leasing and you've got some agreement to turn this stuff every 3 years or so, you don't get to a place where we are today where you push the button and nothing happens. You know, it just gets outdated. So if it gets into some agreement that keeps us on a roll with all of our hardware and software current, I think we'd be better off in the long run than just having a reaction to, oh my God, it doesn't work anymore, you know,
Yeah.
5, 6, 7 years down the road. So those things, Dell Direct, the state to leverage it, leasing versus buying, something to get us on a program where we've got newer equipment all the time, get an idea where that takes us.
So I was talking with Chris Jack with the computer, oops, sorry. So in our conversations with the Computer Fireman, he did mention that he is looking into the Dell leasing options, and so he was saying that some of those could actually be really beneficial for us and cost effective, and so he's going to present us with price differences. And the ones that he's providing with us are the just direct cost via the Dell leases. The one thing is, though, not all of the equipment that we may need should be leased for like security's sake. It's like networking type equipment and stuff, but maybe just the computers could be leased.
Well,
But-
laptops and remote things, you know, accessories to the base server that you need.
Yeah.
That's what I had in mind.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely looking into that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the security thing is that the laptop goes away, gets turned in, and we have to make sure that when that happens, we make sure that all of the information on the computer is wiped out.
Yeah, I think you find if you get into a lease with them, they've got.
That process?
They've
Oh, yeah,
got
sure.
processes that allow you to wipe
Sure.
that clean.
And I think that's part of maybe the city, when you start issuing the computers too, we start getting back into a habit of policy of tracking where devices are, so we don't find ourselves where we were a couple years ago. So I think it'll all tie in
Yeah, they have.
together.
They very easily grow legs and walk away.
Yeah.
Okay, back to number 15, home buyers reserves that we talked about. There is a schedule further back that looks like this.
Got it.
And if you look at the first column, original loan, that will indicate to you that we have, as of the schedule preparation, we have 8 homes in the program. The program is a GAP program, which simply means individual A or family A wants to buy a home. The home is worth X. They qualify for X minus as far as the mortgage is concerned, and we provide the minus to get it back up to the amount that will allow them to get into the home. Those funds come from the state of California. They basically give us the money, we write a check, put it into escrow closes, and we are then guaranteeing that money for the term of the mortgage, or 30 years, whichever comes first. And the program, the people are in the program as long as they remain in the home and the original mortgage continues. There are provisions in the agreements that if they want to refinance, we can subrogate our interest in the property. But
Who's managing this?
Hmm?
Who's managing this, Mike?
managing this,
Yeah.
No.
I mean, are they contacting the city if they wanted to refinance?
they
or-
contact the city, yes. They contact the city if they want to refinance. We are identified, and if one of these houses sells, we get our money back. And as a matter of fact, that's actually happened. In October, one of the houses sold, and we received the money back plus accrued interest. The interest accrues at 2%, which means we have, at the present time, $143,000 that we can find somebody else who needs this gap financing. The program still exists. If we wanted to be involved with it, all we need to do is contact the controller's office, fill out an application, establish a loan committee, develop a wait list, and we can get back into the business if we want to.
So,
Are these 8 loans active?
Yes,
They are. And the one that was sold that you mentioned
yes,
has fallen off the list?
that's correct.
Okay.
so now we have more. So is it a matter of just directing that we go ahead and re-enter into that? Or activate? What's, if it's, has it,
Exactly.
It needs
We
to be
need-
activated,
What we
right?
need to do is contact the controller's office, who will put us in contact with the person in the county. And it wasn't clear to me whether it was the county itself or within Calaveras, somebody within Calaveras County, or someone who handles all of the loan business in California, in Calaveras County. So we need to investigate that information, and then we loan this money.
So there's another column that shows what our contribution was. In other words, if the loan value, if the loan requirement was for the top unit there was, say, 180,
Yes,
they qualified at 142. The city contributed the difference?
no, it's actually, the amount that we contribute is the gap between the mortgage qualification and the price of the house.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yes,
So if it was rated at, 170, then the difference there, 22,000, we're providing that.
that's correct.
And that's in an account somewhere else? It's not listed here. That's a liability for us, right?
It's part of the
I'm not sure.
Where'd that money come
grant.
from, the 22,000?
It's part of the grant money that,
Oh,
with
they-
CBDG. So when they apply for the loan, we get the money from the CBG. It doesn't come out of our general
Right.
fund budget. It comes out of the CBDG funding that we monitor. or we oversee, whatever wording
So
you
the
want to
state
see.
gave us the 22,000.
Yeah,
I
so then
understand,
they
yeah.
put in the application, whatever the difference is, we take that money out of the CBD, and then we make up the difference, and then the city, primarily in the past, historically, has been the finance officer, oversees that loan program and makes sure that they're making the adequate payments, everything's matching, and then they're doing their thing on the other end with the bookkeeping. And the-
You scared me a minute ago when I asked who was managing this. I thought you said nobody.
I think you did.
Somewhat, yes, the city is managing it within the
There were people
guidelines.
managing it before I got here,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Nobody
there was
is-
a gap.
Nobody is now, right?
But
It's just sitting there,
somebody's
it's
gonna
sitting there
manage
now.
it who's
Yes.
standing behind you right
Yeah.
now, right?
You're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
okay.
Yeah, and a decision has to be made, are we going to become active in this program again?
We haven't
Is it-
done anything with it in 10 years, it looks like.
We have not.
Yeah.
And we had one last year, 2 years ago, that we
We had
we
to,
looked at it, and, I mean, it's just kind of been falling in between, and I think that's kind of why we continued this path, because it gives those individuals an opportunity to buy a home in Angels and stay in Angels. But from my understanding from Julie in the past, it hasn't been one of those, hasn't been a burden to the city, because there's not so many of them.
Yeah.
But, I mean, but that comes from the direction of staff. Once, if it does become maybe at that point, we reevaluate what we're doing with the program. But,
correct, and simply put, and I do mean simply because it's more complicated than this, you fill out an application, you get people on a wait list, you have somebody who's going to go get a home, and you go to the controller's office and say, give us the money. And they give us the money. Of course, there's a bunch of paperwork that goes along with that, and everything. Anybody who's ever bought a home knows how much paperwork is involved. So that part of it is difficult. But the money does come from the state, and within the first 15 years of the program, when 15 years from the date that we actually write the check into escrow, this money stays in the program. After the first 15 years, something happens differently, and I don't know what that is, but that's just a simple phone call.
and my understanding too is they have to put the application through to the city. And then from the city, once they apply to the city, then it goes to the controller's office. We are making the decision first, and then it goes to the controller's office. It doesn't go directly. The city controls the application process.
That's
Is
correct.
my understanding.
That is correct, yes. Yes, and there are very specific criteria under which the person has to qualify. There is a document that we found that said basics of the program, and the basics of the program is that thick. So it's a pretty complicated process, but once you get into it, it's like anything else. The people have to fill out the application, they have to state all of the information. Then we sit down and look at their financial situation and see if they qualify. And the program itself mandates what the qualifications are.
Great.
So does that answer the council members who will come?
I
who
was
were looking
wondering if, do we need, if we wanted to reactivate this, is there some process that we need to go through?
So my recommendation is, given current constraints of staff load and workload and time, that I get together with Mike and Emily and evaluate where this is in terms of a priority. If we're interested in resurrecting something that we haven't done for 10 years. But I think given our current staff load, we have other priorities right now. But I'll talk with them because I'm concerned about the money that we do have in the fund and our obligation to potentially reinvest it in continuing the loan program. So if okay with the council, I'd like to talk with Mike and Emily and see where they are.
I think, see where we're at and what the bigger picture is before we start diving back into it.
Because we're stretched pretty thin.
Yeah.
Losing that position in City Hall has really slowed things down, I think, in both finance and admin. So we have a lot of cleanup to do.
Good.
Any additional questions?
Just, can we agree that, the open items, the waste rate, the water study and the leasing stuff just kind of stays in the queue for a report out?
Yes.
Until it's concluded?
Correct.
So we will start recording council direction in the minutes. So I will work with Susan. We'll make sure that that direction is reflected in the minutes to continue to bring those items forward until complete.
It's really good, Mike. I appreciate that. Follow it.
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but in regards to the LLD, the landscape costs, I understand they were only over budget by $158.92. However, again, if they're under contract and they're not to exceed a specific dollar amount, why did they, if they went over, why are we paying for it?
Why did we pay it? We're looking into that.
Okay, because I would think, again, that should be, it doesn't have to be a check written back to us. We could always put it towards the next year.
Yes.
But if they're under contract, they're under contract, and that's that. If
Agreed.
they don't like it,
And this is one of the things that would have
I
been
mean,
controlled a little bit better once we get the contract system up and running. We'll be watching all of these contracts a little bit better.
excellent.
Unfortunately, right now, there's not a process to monitor
Oh.
these contracts and to identify them and track what's owed, what's been paid, and what the balance remaining is on contracts. So that is definitely something that we are working with Springbrook and one of Emily's tasks to prioritize this year.
Excellent. Thank
While
you.
we're kicking that horse, on the 15 grand that didn't get spent in the budgeting process, did we roll that and it's now 30 in 18-19?
Where is he?
We didn't. We
Where are
just
you?
didn't carry it forward.
Yeah.
Where are you?
Just went unspent.
It just went unspent.
Okay.
We'll find out why.
Okay.
Probably a good reason.
So that's among
Once
the
we
open
discover
items
it.
that got caught in the minutes, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So I will check, and maybe Dave could clarify it in the engineer's report, though, but I think in the engineer's report, the ending balance from the prior year gets carried over, and then we put together the budget for 18-19, inclusive of unspent funds from the prior year. Yes. So though, if there were unspent funds in the LLD, they get identified in that beginning balance. Now, the
yes.
beginning balance is reflected in the engineer's report, and then all of the line items get rebudgeted with the current year projected assessments and the ending balance from the prior year.
Yeah, it ends up in their fund balance,
Okay.
and they can bring that forward.
All right.
I'm going to step aside, and Emily will take over.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks a lot,
Over to you.
Mike,
You're welcome.
for all that checking.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any other questions for the council before Emily starts? No?
Because I'm starting on item 60. Oh, yes. I'm starting on item 6D then.
Okay. So this is the approval of the resolution of 1841?
Yes.
Correct? Okay, so this is amending the 2018-2019 budget to incorporate the museum adjustment, addition of a police officer 1, and to serve as a school resource officer along with other adjustments. So, go for it.
All right, so after the budget was approved, we were left with some direction to make some adjustments to come back with, first and foremost, the museum adjustment. And so we do have an attachment immediately following the staff report, the attachment 1, with the museum budget. We have the adopted as revised, and then with the amendment, it's going to be a net addition of $54,069.87, primarily coming from salaries. And then the other big one that we were talking about was the materials and supplies. But you can note all the benefits that go with the salaries as well. So that has a net positive effect of $56,000 on the general fund. The next item in this amendment is about the school resource officer. We wanted to add an additional police officer. And this is part of that for the school resource officer, excuse me. And that has a net effect of $26,000 on the general fund. The next item is the Mark Twain Road Water Main Repair Project. The project is complete and there are some additional costs that are over the original contract of $13,302. And then the next item is regarding the electrical vehicle charging station. So that is from an additional revenue, a CMAQ grant. And so that would have no effect on our funds. The next two items also don't have any effect. They're just moving expenditures from one category to another one. There was a lease that wasn't budgeted for a fire truck. We thought that it was completed, but it has a couple more years left, I believe, and that's in the amount of $14,629, and that will come from elsewhere in the fire department budget. We're talking with them, and they are aware of that and have that reallocated there. The next was for the Parks lawn mower. It was coded as a steel door, and so we're going to reclassify it to be a lawn mower.
Good for us.
Yeah, we're doing good. The next item, we're recommending that we increase dues and subscriptions and training and travel expenditures in the admin and finance department. This is for training opportunities and ICMA dues for the city administrator, finance officer, and the administrative services officer. The next one is for public works. There's right now their alarm system is very outdated, and it requires 2 phone lines that go to it, but there's currently only 1 phone line there, and I think the requirements were upgraded several years ago, and nothing ever happened there. And so it's, in order for the fire alarm to work, you need either a second phone line, or you could do a cellular service, or a cellular communication with that. And so this is to add the cellular communication out there, so their fire alarm is in compliance. And the similar, at wastewater, they also have the same fire alarm, and it needs the cellular communication, as well as there were 2 increases in costs for wastewater. There was that one, and then also their courier service that delivers the samples to different places. Dave could tell you more about the specifics, but their courier service was unexpectedly increased.
Let me come back to the alarm problem for a minute.
Sure.
If we add the second landline, the alarm works the way it's supposed to, right?
Yeah.
And there's a monthly fee for that.
Yeah.
But if we add cellular, we've got $1,000 plus the monthly fee for cellular.
No.
Because it's got to be a unit.
We're already paying the signal service. It's to signal service. We're already paying for the alarm system. It's the same cost whether we're going to do the cellular connection versus the, do we have something to add? Versus the phone.
The carrier is going to want a number
No, it's
assigned to
just,
that.
no, it's no number. It's just via signal service. They install, it's just a cellular communication rather than a phone line, is the way I understood it.
Huh.
There's not a phone connected to the cellular. It's just like an antenna. Yeah.
I'll think of it that way.
Yeah,
Thank you.
radio. There you go. There's
Okay.
no phone. It would definitely be cheaper to just one time $1,000 versus, I think our phone lines are outrageous in how much they are. They're, close to $200 a line a month, and that,
Okay.
the $1,000 pays for itself pretty quick
Okay.
over that.
Great, thanks.
And the last item, we do have an attachment with this. The Citygate Associates, they did have an additional interviews that they wanted to complete, and so that's an additional $1,850 over their contract. So in total then, the net effect on the general fund is a positive $23,669. And then other funds, we have the wastewater funds, $29,000 decrease, and then the 13,302 in roads. Right. Or no, I'm sorry, water. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Water.
How many years left for the 14 on the fire truck lease?
I'm sorry?
How many more years are left on the lease for the fire truck? I thought we were done. I thought we were done.
That's what you said last year.
Okay.
Has anybody got control of the lease that knows?
We're on 29 out of
Nate.
60. So we're like halfway there. We got some time, like 2 years.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
I thought we did a lump sum. Oh, that's what it was. Can we reevaluate that too, and maybe talk to the fire department about maybe seeing about the cost of a lump sum versus spreading this out, if that, see what our options are with that?
To pay it off sooner?
Yeah,
you mean?
because if it's only 2 years, I mean, and we're gonna continue rolling this over one line item each budget, what's the cost benefit analysis on this to just
Yeah.
get it out of our way?
Okay, so you want to look into paying it off?
Just a bigger overview, yes, and see what they think versus what you know, just a dialogue. Because it's such a short time.
We can provide you with some options here
Okay.
soon on.
Okay, because I was on the same page with you. I
Yeah,
thought
we
took
have
care
a
of
few
this.
ideas that are cooking, so
Okay,
I'll bring something back.
okay, thank you.
So we will show that as an action item in the minutes.
Okay, thank you. Is there any, oh,
That's everything.
okay.
Thank you.
Before we bring it back to council comment, is there any public comment? No? Okay, back to council. The discussion?
I'm good with this.
Yeah, I'm fine.
I move to approve amendment number 1 as stated here.
Okay.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The second, was that Veronica?
I seconded it.
Linda, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Linda. That's okay. We aren't saying who did everything anymore, are we?
Okay.
I can usually
Okay.
hear it.
Thank you. Okay, item number 7, we have a consolidated staff report. Council was given at the beginning of the meeting, Amy provided a staff report that is available on the table.
Thank you. So I would encourage the council to take a look at Amy's staff report, provided a lot going on in the planning department in the last few months. So there's some interesting reading there. If you have any questions for Amy, don't hesitate to give us a call and let us know if you have any questions about the projects identified. Also, we did provide the public safety fire department update, and one of the things that we noticed was a discussion of the Finnegan fire had not been included in the notable incidents. So Nathan, our fire marshal, is here, and he can give you the background on that fire, but that should be one of the fires that we responded to during that period of time reported. So, you're on.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. So as Melissa had said, we failed to include the item of the Finnegan fire, which happened on July 3rd, just before 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Vegetation fire was started by the use of illegal fireworks by juveniles. They were not safe and sane fireworks. They were definitely highly illegal. It started a 3/4 acre fire that was suppressed. It was extinguished, or what we say contained, within about half an hour to 45 minutes, and then fully controlled by 7 o'clock. We, in conjunction with Angels PD and CAL FIRE prevention officer, we were able to obtain the juveniles that started, and they were issued citations that were forwarded to the district attorney's office. Any other questions? I'd be happy to answer them.
Who pays for that? When it's started by juveniles, are their parents then billed in any way?
Not billed, it was handled, criminally. They were cited and forwarded to the DA. I don't know if that's something that you could look at civilly. That's not
Well,
in my,
To Veronica's point, you see that in the paper once in a while.
Uh-huh.
That they're going to hold somebody civilly liable for the damages. The numbers are astronomical when it comes to some of the big fires.
Right.
But for something like that, if there's a responsible party, is there a billing opportunity there?
That I don't know.
yeah, we'd have to talk with legal counsel and find out what our
Okay.
what our options are there.
Okay.
Yeah, and to that extent, we had a significant influx of resources that we wouldn't normally be getting because it was in close proximity to the state responsibility area. Had that happen more in the middle of town where it's not a direct threat to the SRA, we would not have received aircraft unless requested by City Fire. And had we requested them, we would be on the hook for payment. So we received a number of resources that we would not normally get on a vegetation fire in the city. But because it was in close proximity to the SRA, we received them. And they're willing to provide those on initial dispatch when they're not sure exactly whether this is a state responsibility fire or a local responsibility fire. Once it's determined it's the LRA, their resources are primarily there to assist in extinguishment only or containment, and once the life threat is mitigated, they're gone. So then we're left with whoever we have on duty to help, patrol, mop up, cut line, fix fence, investigate everything that goes along with having a fire, so.
So Nathan and I were also approached by a concerned property owner in the area that's been affected by started fires. So he has requested that an item come before the council. We will probably be bringing forward an item for your consideration, but the request has been made that council hear an item to consider banning fireworks within the city limits.
Well, he made that in the council meeting that night. He was out of breath when he made it.
So what happened, because in past years, we've always had a designated area, whether it be at the school or at the park, where everyone can go to do the fireworks. So what happened this year?
We did the same thing.
Okay.
We partnered with Bret Harte School District,
Okay.
and we had the sports complex available,
Okay.
yeah.
So from what I understand is that the cause of these fires have been illegal fireworks. And I also understand that Bret Harte High School does make a considerable profit in their fireworks sales for their fundraising event. And that's why in exchange, they give to the city the location at the pool, in the parking lot. And I even think that they host a barbecue for the safe use of those fireworks. And I think they have a pool party. They do a number of things within the community to support safe and sane fireworks and the sale of fireworks within the city. So that will be part of the overall discussion, but we just wanted to let you know that there is that concern still in the community, and there's the expectation that coming soon, we bring that item before the council.
Thank you, Nathan.
Wait.
Oh, wait.
Come on back.
Oh,
The nice strip of land that goes down Old Stockton Road between Highway 4 and Old Stockton Road, that's nice, high vegetation, drier than dry.
Explain to me the area one more time.
So down Stockton Road,
Yes,
where the horses are.
okay.
In the strip
uh-huh.
of land, between that and Highway 4.
Mhm.
I know the horses are in there, but the rest of that is extremely dry and high. And then also the land that's on the corner for sale.
Correct.
At the corner of Angel Oaks. I know that a lot of people have been concerned if a fire starts there in the trees, blows over, hits roofs, into Angel Oaks and so forth. Are we taking any action in regards to making sure that strip of land is taken care of? I know there's private ownership there.
Yeah, so it was my understanding that the horses were containing the doing vegetative management there.
Okay.
You might have some area that's along the fence, I'll have to go by and look, that, they just can't feasibly get to eat off.
Right.
And that it doesn't pose a real significant concern if there's nowhere for it to go. Obviously, we don't want any fires to start, but if it can't spread anywhere, that's our goal. And on the corner, he did some vegetative management and had cut a 30-foot perimeter, which a parcel larger than 1 acre is just required to cut a 30-foot perimeter.
Okay.
In the middle there is an island of contiguous fuel, but on the outside, I noticed, the grass is not there. You've had a secondary like summer growth or star thistle or what have you, which may seem to be unsightly. It doesn't really carry fire.
Okay.
The middle island would, but that's the goal, is to cutting the perimeter, is to eliminate something from spreading to.
Okay. Just because I get asked about it a lot. So thank you.
Right,
I
yeah,
have
no problem.
answers.
Hope that-
So
I
this
appreciate
is
that.
another item that we have discussed considerably with fire and also with our Public Works Department. And this is an item that we plan to bring forward to the council, making sure that the council and the community are aware of our ordinances and what they require, and that the council is prepared to enforce those ordinances and what enforcement of those ordinances mean. And then also the implementation of an outreach program to the community, making sure that they're aware of their responsibility associated with their property, because for many, they have large parcels of property that are surrounded within the city limits and historically have not gone through the cost of abating those fields or those properties. So that is something that Nathan and I have been discussing, and then also working with Public Works to identify, if it's city right-of-way, if it's an easement, or if it's just dedicated right-of-way. A lot of times, the property owners still has the responsibility to maintain, and a lot of times that's not understood. They think that it's the city's responsibility. So we would just put together an educational program, and that way we can move forward enforcing the ordinances and people not be surprised.
Yes.
So we hope to maybe bring that in January.
Some open discussion to provide a little direction. There's some instances that prove to be difficult situations that, I would like some direction from council on how you would like them handled.
Yeah, I know there's some areas around where I live, too, that could run into a problem, and so I was curious, but I'll ask more about it privately. Also, yeah, I really think, if we have a good education program, then when you have the young people, then the parents, if they're shown the big, important responsibility and the problems that are existing, then that does put more responsibility on the parents to watch, to see, what their children are doing at that time and keep an eye on them. So I think that would be very important education for the community.
All right.
Any other, no?
I'd like to ask Amy a question about
Yeah, go.
this.
Amy?
Amy, on the permits issue, two questions. One is there a ballpark number for a permit cost on a single-family dwelling?
For building permit costs?
Yeah.
Goodness, are we including traffic and
In
sewer
an
and water?
In an established development, like Greenhorn or
Okay.
Angel Oaks.
Sewer, water connection fees? 18 to 21, and then it's not very much for a building permit fee. It's, yeah,
So what? it's 200 there,
wild
18
guess, 25.
25. And then, do either of you know where we stand with the development at DeNova Homes? Are they completely?
They're not complete yet?
So there are more permits
There
to be
are.
applied for there?
Yes.
Okay.
Not a whole bunch, just a few. I think like less than a dozen left. We had 58 last quarter permits, and of those, come on, 8 were residences. I believe all of those were from DeNova. And funds, so I think we've got approximately
It
12.
looks like they're building it out.
They're really close.
You're close.
I apologize, I didn't hear, how much are the permits in regards to building?
Wild guess, 25,000, that's including traffic, water, sewer, probably not the school fee. Say again? That's what I meant, traffic, city service impact mitigation fees also. So, yeah, probably closer to 27. Yeah, right, that's in that.
So it's not linked to square footage on the structure or anything, it's just those hard numbers?
On the city service impact mitigation fee,
It is.
it's a hard number for a single family,
Yeah.
but it is, I believe, related to square feet for commercial,
Okay,
or they're exempt, one of the two.
thank you.
I didn't bring my fee binder.
Any other council comment? No? Okay, I just wanted to comment that I'm glad to see that the merchants are coming together and talking about downtown area and how to mitigate some of the issues that have been going on. So that's nice and refreshing to see. So, thank you. And item 8, council reports, and I will start with my left with Councilmember Mitoli.
Just that, keep going to farmer's market, it's a lot of fun. It's cooler in the park.
Yeah, it's better now, not so smoky.
Yeah, hallelujah.
Yeah.
Vice Mayor?
Well, the concert, the Jason Eady concert was excellent and a great success, and really helped the Angels Camp Community Club to have their first opportunity and to have over $6,000 that I don't think they mind me sharing. And so that was excellent activity. And then just a reminder, this was something that a couple of the merchants just kind of thought they might do, which was the movie American Graffiti is on tomorrow night downtown at the theater. And there are some cars, older cars, that hopefully will be coming down and being parked, because no one's closing the street. And so there should be older cars parked. I was thinking maybe we should just lead them and they could do a little drive. Do like Modesto did. But anyway, and also there's going to be from 5 to 6:30. So if you come down during that time, there'll be hot dogs and a little side of popcorn for $2. And there will be root beer floats in Yummy Haha. And so we're thinking it's just a nice night for everyone just to come down, get together, hang out, and go to the movie. And I'll have to share one thing quickly. Two of the ladies, older ladies that I was at church, I was sitting there, and they were in Turlock. They lived in Turlock, and she said, when you see the Aqua Chevy with a bunch of girls in it in the movie, it's us.
Oh, how
Yeah,
fun.
she said they had the same Chevy. And so she was just thrilled. She said, we're coming, they're in their 70s. We're coming, So anyway, very cute. So I encourage you all to come.
Councilmember Oliver?
I did attend the UWPA board meeting last Tuesday, and of significance, I think it was the rate issue that I brought up earlier. That's it.
I too attended the Jason Eady concert last week, and the city presented them with some souvenirs on the behalf of the council before the concert started. And it was a good gathering. I was glad to see so many come out. It was very refreshing to see that the community is really looking forward to being a part of this and making this a community outcome together, not just separated by two different, it's all of us coming together, and it was nice to see that. And then that is it. And now 9 to calendar. Oh, I do have one other thing. Tomorrow, Melissa will be giving a presentation at the chamber on behalf of the city. So So if anyone's heading to the chamber, make sure tomorrow morning, Melissa will be giving the presentation.
and she won't be nervous at all. She won't sleep tonight.
Sorry, Susan, you can
Will
go.
that be aired anywhere?
We're going to talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
In San Andreas. Okay, tomorrow at 5:30, COG in the Board of Supervisors chambers, and then after that, the Calaveras Transit meeting. On the 13th, the Planning Commission meets here at 6 PM. On the 17th, there may or may not be a Solid Waste Task Force
Probably not.
meeting. And 6 PM on the 17th is LAFCO. And we'll meet back here at the firehouse on the 18th for council at 6 PM.
Okay.
And with that, if there is no other comment, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.